How you feeling about Ravens camp?
I'm feeling so good.
Are you? I'm feeling pretty good about Bills camp. I'll tell you, I'm going to see you on September 7th for a second year in a row, home openers.
I know.
I'm very excited about it. It's a great game. If you have never been to a Bills-Ravens game, it's probably the best fan experience.
It's intense.
It's a good one.
I have love for Josh Allen. And Josh Allen...
He's the prince.
He is the prince. But Lamar Jackson...
I mean, he's the king. I'll give it to you. He is.
I'm just saying, Josh Allen is great.
Yes.
Lamar Jackson is transformational. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen is a great NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson has changed football. And I'm just like, so when it comes to the MVP race, I'm like, yo, like in another era, yeah, Josh Allen would be a fantastic pick. But it's like, really?
We did get it this year, but I got to tell you, the chatter in Rochester and in Buffalo was like, if we don't get it, only Lamar. That's the only one.
Yes.
If it was him, totally fair. But anybody else, right, we would have been pissed about.
But I got to tell you though, the Bills are tough, and also the Bills are young.
Yeah.
They're young, so it's like
every year is our year, you know.
Yeah.
Every year we start over. It's like the first day of school every year. I don't know. I was at training camp this past week, and they look pretty good. But I was like, you know, you hold your breath the whole time.
We got to watch the game together. I'm serious.
I would love to.
It is a really, really fun game to watch.
It is. I like that fandom. It's much better than Kansas City Bills. Okay. That's a rivalry. There could be fights.
Yes.
In the Ravens Bills games, it's very much fights over how great each person is. So it's like a mutual love thing.
I was shocked last year when Kansas City beat the Bills. I was very surprised.
I mean,
very surprised.
We don't have time to get into all of my conspiracy theories about that. But on me and Wes Moore's Future Sports podcast, we will dig into that. You like being the governor?
I love being the governor.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You know what's so funny? When I first got into this, and they're like, "Why'd you want to go into politics?" Because I have no political experience at all. Like, and I've never been a person who's like been into this stuff. And I was like, I kind of don't want to go into politics. I want to be the governor.
Yeah.
Because governor is such a unique role.
Yeah.
Because
how is it not politics though?
Because it's like I don't have to do the partisan stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't get any benefit from going and saying, this side is great and this side is bad and this side is this and this side is that, because I'm just like, yo, like, does it make sense for my people or not?
Right.
Is it something that we believe in? Is it something that, you know, that we can fight for? And it is something that kind of sees everybody. And that's kind of like how I always came up. It's how I was trained. And so governor is kind of unique in that way, where you don't have to get into this whole like performative back and forth. So I love being governor.
I used to live in the great state of Maryland.
Where?
I lived in Frederick, Maryland. Maryland's twinklest town. It's the cutest little place in the world.
It is so good.
Maryland is an interesting state not only in its shape and flag, but in the fact that you really do have every part of America, right?
100%.
Like you have deep red areas, deep Democratic areas. You got the political wonks who live in the Beltway side. Then you've got the great city of Baltimore, where I worked, which is one of the dopest, most underrated cities in the whole world.
Say that.
Just the coolest, best food, best people.
Yes. But Frederick is also, the fastest growing area in Maryland right now.
I know, because I got priced out of buying a house there. That's why we live in Rochester now. Because I was like, wow, if you want to live off Market Street, you got to get that YouTube number up a little bit more.
I know, but you know what though? But I'm telling you, but this is one of the big reasons I'm like, yo, we got to build more housing.
I know.
I am like so pro housing. Close to 40% of young Marylanders say they would consider leaving the state of Maryland for one reason: housing costs.
It's exactly right.
And it's like, and that's just nuts.
Yeah, because the vibes are immaculate there, but the cost of housing is difficult. And I know even in Frederick, they were building a lot of new housing, and folks are like, okay, that helps a little bit. But talk to me a little bit more about how you think housing will keep folks in Maryland and keep their talent there.
Well, because I think when you think about what are people's basic wants and basic needs, right? I want to go to a place where I feel safe, and a place where I feel welcomed, and a place where I know I can have shelter that I can grow into, and also something, and the reason I'm really big into home ownership is like I want to be able to own something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a big believer that we have to create an ownership society, because one of the greatest drivers of wealth is home ownership. It always has been. And so I just really believe that if we've got to do a better job of creating more opportunities for people to be able to own something. And then that gives you the ability to actually own more than you owe. And so I just think that, and there's things that government can do, because governments, part of the reason we've had this problem in the first place is because of government. Government has been the problem because they've been terribly restrictive. They've been incredibly miserly and arbitrary as to where you can build, who can buy, where you can buy, and putting together covenants and laws that have been deeply restrictive and oftentimes very discriminatory. And so I feel like if government is part of the reason that we have the problem, then government actually should have a role in helping to fix it and address it. And housing is a perfect example of it.
Common sense things. People want to live here. We should give them a place to live, period.
Place
right?
to live. And that gives them a reason to stay and
Open a
not take their
business.
talents elsewhere.
Yep.
Exactly. And not take the talents elsewhere.
So speaking of talent, another thing I love about Maryland, the University of Maryland Athletics Department, fantastic, wonderful players, great structure there. And I'm sure that you know this, but just to remind you, when the name, image, and likeness laws got changed and now the athletes were going to be able to make money, build a brand off their own likeness and their own brand excellence.
Yes.
Maryland pioneered a program with the business school to pair people up and say, hey, why don't we get the business students involved to teach the athletes how to build a brand? What do the economics of that look like? How do you structure a deal? What's the lawyer look like? Get them involved early.
Right.
A couple days ago, though, President Trump signs the Save College Sports executive order trying to undercut name, image, likeness.
Yeah.
How can you protect that program that Maryland's been fostering and really pioneering for schools across the country from this federal policy that's now sort of prioritizing? They're saying, well, if we give the athletes the money, it'll put too much pressure on the donors.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because for so long I've been a huge advocate of you've got to fix this system.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you have student athletes that are essentially more athlete students when you consider the time that they were putting into this work. And the only thing they're getting is a scholarship, while the universities are making millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on these athletes. And so I'm just like, there's got to be a fairer system than this. I do think what this has turned into has been challenging and problematic, because it's like once Pandora's box opened up, now it's just like where every single year head coaches are spending more time trying to keep their players than they are recruiting new players, where they're just like, this player's like, after my freshman year, I'll just go elsewhere unless you can give me a guarantee on playing time.
And they want like $40 million too. It's like a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. So I do agree that we've got to be able to come up with some kind of systems and controls and all that kind of stuff. But I also think that we can't forget the reason that we started off this NIL piece in the first place. The reason was because the athletes were getting exploited. The reason was because the athletes were not in any way benefiting from this larger conglomerate that we saw when it came to college sports and college athletics. That, yes, we don't want our college athletes to feel professionalized, but we also don't want them exploited. And so there has to be a better balance. I don't think that the EO that the president put together is that balance that we're looking for.
Yeah.
But there is and there should be a way
Yeah.
of saying, respect the athletes, respect the product that they are bringing and why these universities are getting so much money when it comes to television deals, advertisements, et cetera. But let's also not turn this essentially into a junior professionalization of what's happening, with 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds.
So something I really admire about you, and I think is getting more and more rare in politics, is your military history. And I think that there's such an interesting conversation happening now about if the president of the United States or if a governor or if whoever should have military experience, understanding that the military is one of the greatest exports of America, right? Like a lot of our country and patriotism and identity is built on what we do in service and security. How do you think your experience in the Army has shaped your leadership now?
I honestly think you cannot understand how I lead without understanding the role that the military played in it. And it's not just about the discipline and the leadership traits and mission first and people always and all that kind of stuff that the military kind of teaches you. It's also the fact that I was forced to learn this country in a way that I never understood it before. Like, had it not been for the military, I had had no reason to go spend time in Columbus, Georgia, or Fayetteville, or Fort Leonard Wood. You know what I mean? Like, parts of the country that were so foreign to me because I knew cities. And now I'm getting to not just get to know parts of the country, but people in other parts of the country that I just like, I have now grown a real sense of affinity for and just like real passion and love for. And I think that's made me a better person because now I'm like, I'm comfortable everywhere I go. Whether you throw me in, when we were going out and campaigning over in Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore, and people are like, you seem to be just as comfortable out in, Cumberland as you do in Catonsville. And I was like, because I am. Because it's been part of my life and it's been part of my journey. And so I think that the thing about the military, it wasn't just the idea of this is how you take care of people. This is how you make sure that you leave no one behind. This is how you make sure you have, a real operations orders on the things that you want to be able to get done. It also, I think it exposed a different sense of humanity to me that I never lost sight of. And thankful because of the military, because I never will.
There's such a conversation now about how men feel a lack of community, they feel a lack of brotherhood, they feel a lack of party in many cases. They can't fit into Republican or Democrat. They don't know where to go. What is it about that brotherhood that you had with the military that we can maybe bring into the conversation to help people feel included, feel like they're not left behind, feel like they're smart enough to get involved in stuff? So much of my experience just working adjacent to the DoD was that idea of like, you're responsible for your personal property when things happen. You all have to work together, whether you like each other or not, whether you were rich or poor. One of you fucks up, you're all fucked up.
That's right. That's right.
So how do we raise everybody up? Do you think that there are certain sort of like operationalization from that military structure that we can bring into making the Democratic Party more welcoming, more understanding place?
Part of the challenge that we've seen from a lot of party folks is they look at this as a political configuration. Like, what do we do to win male voters back?
Right. Sam, speaking to American men, the most cringe thing I've ever heard. I was like, guys, we have got to do better than this.
This is crazy.
Like, I get it, but this is very 1990s-ish, sort of like seeing people as products and not as people.
There you go. And so it's like when we're talking about, well, X percentage of this group or that group did not vote Democratic in the last election. What do you do? I said, so the reality is like, once you've lost a voting group, like that's the tail. That's not the head.
Right.
The head happened a long time ago. And there was a lack of acknowledgement about what was actually going on. And I just feel like for a lot of people, and a lot of reasons that we're doing a lot of work in Maryland around, how are we thinking about what's going on with our young men and boys, where it's like, because oftentimes we're speaking about them like they are a problem that has to be solved instead of like an asset that just has to be unleashed and unearthed. And so it's how we're even approaching, what it means to leave no one behind. How we're even, when we're starting that engagement, and how are we making sure that we can have people, because there's nothing that I want more than for every single person in Maryland to be able to feel comfortable in their own skin, to be comfortable with who they are, and to be able to look up and see a pathway for themselves as they're thinking about what becomes my future here living in the state. And we haven't always been really good at that. We've been very good at cutting off, restricting, blocking, making people feel unwelcomed. And then we wonder why we have an electoral problem every 2 or 4 or 6 years. And so I just think there has to be a whole new approach about creating pathways of acceptance for people, and to say like, we're not doing it, it's not a zero-sum thing where it's like we're going to prioritize this or prioritize that, but it's basically saying if everybody does not feel a level of engagement, that is not good for families, that is not good for neighborhoods, that is not good for communities, that is not good for the state. And so that becomes our priority, to be able to get that done.
So how are you doing that in Maryland? Do you have a couple examples of ways that you're starting to make people feel like a Marylander for life?
Yes. And so, and naturally, a lot of it goes back to how we're thinking about things for our own individual groupings, where, we have been very clear in our state, for example, that, hate can find no oxygen within our state. And then so people will know that you are protected everywhere you go. No, and it doesn't matter to us about your religious affiliation, sexual orientation, neighborhood that you call home. That our priority is to make sure that everybody feels safe in their own communities, neighborhoods, and in their own skin. But specifically, when you were mentioning before about what's going on with our young men and boys, it is about how are we making sure that we're putting examples in front of them that actually make them understand that there are supports and systems in place. And for me, it became something that's very personal because I was raised by an immigrant single mom. I was someone who came up with the same level of anger and frustration and frankly fear that a lot of our young men and boys are feeling inside of our state. And so by doing things like, Maryland's now the first state in the country that has a service year option for all of our high school graduates, that every high school graduate has a chance to have a year of service to the state of Maryland, that we have made historic investments in apprenticeship platforms and trade platforms and saying like, listen, a 4-year college is not going to be the path for everybody. So let's just make sure we get them in a pathway for real work, wages, and wealth, no matter what their interest or no matter what their background is. That we have a platform called Thrive. Maryland is now having amongst the fastest drops in violent crime anywhere in the United States of America over the past 2-year period. But one thing we did was he said, we've got to make sure the people and the young people who have the highest propensity of either being the victim or being the perpetrator of gun violence. Right. We've got to make sure we are wrapping our arms around them now. And one thing that we're seeing is not only has it been incredibly effective and kind of award-winning, what we've done with Thrive, is about 98% of them are young boys. And so we saw like, okay, what can we do to specifically make sure that we are providing those kind of supports so we do not have a future victim on our hands or a future perpetrator on our hands. And so I think it's being very intentional about and targeted about the things that we are doing to make sure that people are feeling safe with who they are, welcomed with who they are, and at the same time saying that it becomes our responsibility to provide those kind of supports.
One of the things I've loved about Maryland and when I lived in Maryland was you would hear from the outside world, oh my gosh, Baltimore, I can't believe you work there. Are you scared? I'm like, no. And it would be like laughable to the people who live there because we're like, it's not 1985. Like, yeah, there were problems, but there's been a lot of growth and development and young families being able to move in, and even like what Under Armour has done with bringing industry to the area. And I worked for Hungry Harvest, which is a great company that did a lot of food security. Like we were helping people eat better, reduces the rate of domestic violence, reduces all kinds. When you have food, you can do anything else.
That's right.
So I was like, as a person who was working in Baltimore, it was like laughable to me that people were afraid of Baltimore. I'm like, it's the greatest place. And now I'm seeing on a national stage it growing more and more where people are laughing at the idea that Baltimore is some dangerous hellhole. They're like, no, I went there and I had like a kind of nice time. I came in for a conference. I was nervous, but then I walked around and I was good to go. How does it make you feel to know that like you're part of that big change of people seeing Baltimore as a destination for tourism, as a place to raise a family when, it was on the hit list for like most dangerous places people had all these ideas about?
It makes me feel so encouraged and heartened.
Yeah.
Because this was one of the big reasons why I ran in the first place. As someone who, Baltimore, I really feel that part of the reason I call Baltimore home is that Baltimore, I felt like, was the first place that saw me and believed in me. And
what does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Because I always said like I wasn't born in Baltimore, but Baltimore helped raise me because I was just a kid where just filled with a lot of anger, and it showed itself in a lot of really dangerous and unproductive ways. But Baltimore was the first place that I came to. My mother got her first job that gave her benefits when I was 14 years old. And the job was at a place called the Annie E. Casey Foundation in Baltimore. And that's what brought us back to Maryland. And Baltimore was the first place that I lived in that I felt like completely accepted me, flaws and all, right? Whereas like everywhere I went, I always felt comfortable.
Welcome to Baltimore, hon.
Welcome to Baltimore, hon. It's like everywhere you could I actually felt comfortable. And so I ended up going to college in Baltimore. After I finished up, I moved back to Baltimore because I was like, this is home for me.
Yeah.
And I always knew that it was both the image and the reality for too many people in Baltimore that it was a hard and a tough city to come up in. And so I always said, listen, if I'm gonna do this thing, we're gonna make sure that Baltimore is a core beneficiary of our administration. And so when we came in, we've made historic investments within Baltimore and in areas that oftentimes have been completely neglected and left behind. Because I've always told people that, listen, if you cannot tell me a state that's clicking on all cylinders, but the state's largest city is dying. Mathematically, it doesn't work. And so now what we're seeing is Baltimore is having a population increase that's the fastest that it has been in a decade, that we are watching the homicide rates in Baltimore. We went 8 straight years to 300 plus homicides, the 8 years before I became the governor under my predecessor. Now, Baltimore, the last time the homicide rate was this low in Baltimore City, I literally wasn't born yet. That we're watching Baltimore as one of the fastest growing economies inside the entire country of any major metropolitan area. Baltimore is like in the top 5 now of best places for college grads to come back to. Like Baltimore's on the move. Baltimore is gonna have the kind of decade that I want for the entire, every city in America. 10 years from now, I want them to look and say, I wanna have the decade that Baltimore just had.
Yeah.
Like, and that feels so good.
It does, yeah.
It feels so good because it shows that if we can just, like we've been here for 2 years.
Right.
If we can just be intentional, we can actually change the world. And knowing that we can work together with our mayors, with our business leaders, with our community groups, like we can actually do this. And I think that's the thing that Baltimore is like we got our swagger back.
Oh, for sure.
And I love that.
It's been really great to watch the rise of Baltimore again and to have people be able to experience the city the way that I did and be like, oh, I was wrong. I really like that. And I'm like, yeah, man. It's a good deal.
It is.
We have one question from, because we're running out of time, but we have one question from an actual
This is so much fun.
Okay. I'm going to keep them. Folks had a lot of questions because they're afraid about the federal government creating gaps in funding for things like education or flood funding. Obviously, that was a terrible travesty, what just happened to you guys. Yep. What can the state do to make sure that those gaps are filled or narrowed up against a federal government that's being, a little difficult to work with?
Honestly, they're not being a little difficult to work with.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice.
Yeah.
They're being very difficult and cruel.
And just cruel.
Yeah.
And just cruel. And like, we're not even watching where the relationship between the federal government and the state has been altered. Like, in many cases, it's been severed. The president has now fired more federal workers in Maryland than anywhere else in this country. Over 12,000 federal employees have been fired who call Maryland home. This last month, we lost 3,500 federal employees. That's the largest month-on-month firing of federal workers that Maryland has had in 30 years. And we are like disproportionately exposed to what's happening because of our proximity, that we have 260,000 federal workers that are in the state of Maryland. That, to your point, we are watching things like bills that are passing that is now kicking 250,000 of our people off of healthcare.
Right.
We have massive floods in Western Maryland, and Maryland and not a single state that did not vote for Donald Trump got funding.
Right.
So it's just like, it's barbaric, actually, what's happening. And I've been very clear with the people of my state, like, I will work with anyone, I will bow down to no one, but I'm always gonna make sure we're gonna fight for our people. And despite this like direct assault that we've gotten from the federal government during this time, Maryland, because we've been creative, because we've been able to do things like, get rid of the arbitrary restrictions that were keeping people from the workforce. I signed the largest mass pardon in the history of the United States of America when I pardoned over 175,000 misdemeanor cannabis convictions, because it's stupid that we have people who are literally, where we're making every sentence a life sentence, which allow them back into the workforce, that we've come up with ways of supporting our federal workers and getting them into available state jobs like education or available private sector jobs, where we have had this onslaught of federal workers. But our unemployment rate right now in Maryland is still only 3.3%, which is about a full point lower than the national average, because we've been able to be creative, that we've been able to make sure we're really pushing forward and supporting our people. So I'm proud of what the state has been able to do, that we've been able to rally, we've been able to unite, we've been able to push back. But there is no doubt that this assault that we're seeing from the federal government, there is no state in the country that can alone deal with or has the resources to deal with what happens when the federal government says you're on your own.
You know that creativity is why people want you to run for president, right? There's a lot of states out there that want the Wes Moore creativity to help them out because it is hurting out there. I mean, it's tough. I love my governor, Kathy Hochul, because she puts on that purple lipstick and I just know that she's getting shit done that day, okay? Kathy's a toughie. You're creative, and there's just, I think in face of adversity, those leaders that rise up really do give us that sense that America's not broken, it's not lost, it can be saved, and we're going to do it through these sort of like partnerships and creativity.
And it's one of the beautiful things about being a governor. I don't have the luxury just to sit there and like rail.
Yeah.
Oh, this is bad. Like, I can show an alternative.
Yeah, you got to work.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we can make sure that our people are going to be okay no matter what happens. And really the amazing thing is, you know, I think about, and you said it so beautifully when you're talking about kind of like the complexity of Maryland is the complexity of America, where we really are America in miniature. The reason I know that we're going to be okay is we've seen hard times before. Where, I mean, like, literally, like our state flag that you pointed out, it's complicated because it's literally the combination of a Union and a Confederate flag. That's our state flag. The Mason-Dixon line runs through the state of Maryland. Maryland is the northernmost southern state in the country. And we're also the home of Frederick Douglass and the birthplace of Harriet Tubman and the birthplace of Thurgood Marshall. And so it's like, we're dealing with hard times, but you know what? The people who came before us, they saw hard times too, and they fought. And the reason that we can be here is because they were willing to fight for the hope of us. So in this moment, like, no, we're not bending the knee, and we're not curling up in the fetal position. We're going to fight, and we're going to win, because that's exactly what Marylanders have proven to do.
That's how I lived it. That's what I felt when I was there, so yeah.
Now, you do know, and we are so proud of everything you're doing, but you do know Maryland takes all credit.
Okay, yes. Maryland did raise a good part of me, I will say. It's the community, right? It's when you walk down the street and you're walking home at night and the elders are sitting on their porch making sure everybody gets home. It's the stuff that I never experienced anywhere else in the world other than when I worked in Baltimore and lived in Frederick. It really is a special place. You could go from the docks of Annapolis, the most ritzy places, to taking a tube down the river and having the best time. You know what I mean? It really is one of the best states. You should visit Maryland. If you're not leaving the country, come visit Maryland. There's a lot to see. And, you know, just consider taking your creativity a little broader. I believe in you. I think you could do multiple states. I think you can help them all, you know, like in a president way someday, maybe. We'll see. We'll see.